That'll work. Here we go.
Wonderful. Well, welcome. So the reason we record the sessions is that you can rewatch a session if you want to dig into a topic in a little more detail. If you happen to miss a module, you catch up via watching the recording. We'll explain that a little bit more later. Yeah, it's a record there of the content. I do put a content warning there. We show some road crash scenes, nothing overly graphic, but if that's something that could disturb you for any reason, I just want to flag that now and pre-warn you. Now, this is Loretta, and you see Marissa on the screen, but Loretta is our moderator, and I'll hand it over, though, to Marissa to explain who Loretta is and how to get involved.
Yes, this is our lovely Loretta. She's our training coordinator at Safe Systems Solutions. Loretta has been coordinating the program and getting you all enrolled, and she will be, I am filling in for her today because Loretta is currently flying home from a nice little vacation that she had, but she will be on board from module two onwards and moderating the program. So I'm filling in for her today. My name is Marissa Garisto. If at any time you do need to make contact with us, our training email address is there on the screen below, just under Loretta's name, but I'm sure you would have received lots of emails from us to date. If you can't make a session, any of the sessions for any reason, or if you're having any technical issues or have any logistical admin questions, please just contact us. You're welcome to chat with us in the chat function there on your right-hand side. Or you're welcome to email us as well. With the chat function, there is a little sort of option there to chat to everybody, or you can chat to just myself and Ken if you click on host and panelists. But if you are popping in any general chit chat and comments regarding the content or anything at all, pop it into everyone, just so everybody can see your comments and everybody can follow along. There is a Q&A function also down below on the icons at the bottom of your screen. That is another way that you can pop in a question for Ken. Pop in your questions, anything you'd like to ask, have Ken answer for you, and I'll get Ken answering those questions during the sessions. We can't see you, you can see us. This is a webinar function. However, if you would like to chat to us for any reason at all, you can raise your hand. There is a raise hand option down below there where your icons are. You can select that. I'll say that, and we can enable you to speak. If by any chance your tech fails and you're getting all sorts of glitching and can't hear us, usually a quick fix is to leave the webinar and join back in. If that doesn't work, a good old reboot usually does the trick. But our PDFs or the presentations are up on our learning management system, which you should have received your sign-in credentials for, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Have I missed anything there, Ken?
No, just to reiterate, I mean, the chat function is really how you communicate during this course. So you answer the questions I ask you, or you ask questions to myself or make comments. And we don't have the lunchtime and the breaks to mingle and chat about things. So use the chat function for that, make your comments about things. Sometimes a firewall or something disables the chat, and so you might just be stuck with Q&A. Q&A is sort of your backup option there. And then this email address, that's the super important one. If you've got any issues, assignments are running late, you're having trouble with anything, shoot an email through to that. They're very quick at responding, and they'll help you through any challenge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, what's this learning management system you speak of?
Our learning management system, this is our online portal where we are housing all of the resources for the course. You do need access to this system in order to pass the course and successfully complete it and get your certificate over at the end. So I have enrolled you all into our learning management system. You should have received an email with your sign-in, login and username, and set your password and so on. So hopefully you've been able to access the system. If you haven't by any chance, or you didn't get the email, please let me know. Shoot me an email or let me know in the chat, and I'll organise your access to the system. Hopefully you've had a chance to pop in and have a look around, look at the resources and even say hello. And yeah, we'll show you through the learning management system towards the end of the session. And
Great.
yeah,
Yes, make
yeah.
sure you have access to that. You need access to this system. Okay, so our two technical presenters, myself, Ken Beer. I'm the Principal Engineer at Safe System Solutions. My contact details are there if you want to follow up on anything specifically. I'm happy to chat. And my colleague, Max McArdle, who's Project Development Lead / Active Transport Lead at Safe System Solutions. Max will be taking you through some of the modules. I'll be taking you through some of the modules, and we've got different assignments, different activities, and other bits and pieces, and you'll have a panel of people to coach you if you want one-on-one coaching or a bit of further digging into the topics. So we'll run through that for you shortly. Now, some of you might have done. Oh, sorry.
Oh, so there's Wally.
Yes, Wally. Yeah, that's right. And some of you may have done a online course with us in the past and have met Wally before, but yes, you've got to keep an eye out for Wally, because one of the things we ask you to do is count the number of times you see that Wally warning sign on the slides for each module. And you get some marks for getting that correct. So keep an eye out. And when you get to the quiz for the end of each module, it'll ask, how many times did Wally appear? Now, this is not one of them. This is an example Wally, isn't it?
One doesn't count.
Okay. Wally count is 0 so far.
Yeah.
We do give out some prizes, just like our in-person courses. We give out prizes. Look, Marissa's there, in the prize pit.
I am.
I don't think we give out stuffed toys. We give out prizes.
Yeah, no, we won't send you out a Superman or a Batman unless you really, really want one. But no, we have a great little stockroom of all sorts of bits and pieces that we like to send out. So get involved, pop your answers into the chat and your questions and so on. And if you can stumble Ken up a little bit, I'll send you a special prize myself.
So the way we get the prizes to you is at the end of the course. So Marissa will be keeping a tally of your prizes won throughout all the sessions, and then at the end of the course you'll get a little pack which will contain prizes and any other relevant bits and pieces. So get involved, answer questions. I'll ask questions. Ask questions. We've got some case studies and things, and you volunteer to talk us through your assessment of it. And if you arrive a little bit early before sessions, we run a little bit of fun trivia. Sometimes it's road safety trivia, sometimes it's just general knowledge trivia or the like, and that will just incentivize you to get in early and win a prize before we even kick off. And it looks like somebody's received their welcome pack. Hope your welcome pack arrived. A little something to keep you going, keep you sustained throughout the modules. Now, on to less fun stuff. Well, maybe not less fun stuff, but more very important stuff. We've got some competency requirements for this course. So you're actually going to have to do stuff and prove to us that you understand the basics of the Safe System assessment methodology. And in order to pass the course, you need to attend 4 out of the 5 live webinars. And so if you have to miss that one, you view the recording, as we talked about the recording before. Now, if for some reason life chaos takes over and you can't make more than one, get in contact with training at Safe System Solutions and tell them that, and they'll work something out for you. We need satisfactory completion of all the set tasks. So we have quizzes, exercises, assignments, and the like. So you need to do all of those, and for each of them, you need to get an 80% pass mark on those. Now, you have up to 3 attempts on these each, and we've got that one-on-one coaching available to you if you need it. So if you are struggling with understanding a concept, or you've opened up an assignment and you really go, I'm not sure I understand what I'm meant to be doing here, or the like, you just get in contact with training at safesystemsolutions.com.au and say, can I get some help here? Can I have a meeting? And we'll organize a Teams meeting or a phone call or the like, and we'll really work with you to understand and grasp the concepts. So take advantage of that. I think that's probably about it for admin logistics side of things, Marissa, unless we've missed anything. I suppose one thing I'd like to do is acknowledge the traditional custodians of the many lands that we're running this training on, and pay respects to elders past, present, emerging. And it is varied lands. We're across, we've got a good representation across Australia. Anything I missed, Marissa?
No, we've just had a question come into the chat. Are the assignments generally individual assignments? They are, yes. We've got some, quizzes and so on that you will be completing individually. Towards the end of the module 4, we do give you a little site inspection that you can go out and do and get you to write up a safe system assessment report. You can conduct the inspections, with some team and with some colleagues in a team, but the report itself, we do get you to complete your own individual report. So hope that's able to answer your question there.
Yep, it is. It's as an individual. So now, Marissa, I'm getting some feedback on yours, so I'm going to get you to mute yourself, please.
Oh, I will do.
Thank you. And I'm going to just contextualize safe system assessments for everybody before I jump into some content, because this is a very common question and probably a misunderstanding from some people about what safe system assessments are, because people are much more aware of this thing called road safety audit. Now, I know some of you have done the road safety audit course. Some of you are road safety auditors. You're on a register of road safety auditors. You're certified auditors somewhere. And so that is an established practice. It's been around Australia for about 35 years. It does inject road safety into projects, and it's a good process. There's also design reviews where somebody does a design of road upgrades, highway changes, intersection design, whatever it is, and someone else has a look and reviews their design and does some checks on calculations, if they used appropriate standards, have they interpreted things correctly? So that's sort of what I would call a design review. There's a bit of overlap between road safety audit and design review, but there's certainly things in road safety audits that are not part of design reviews, and vice versa. So a safe system assessment sort of covers off a fair bit of what's in a road safety audit, some design review stuff, but there's a fair bit outside of that that is either presented in a different way, contextualizes things in a different way. It's just it's a different assessment methodology in its own right, but there certainly is overlap. We have a couple of other ones that you might have heard of: safety and design. So safety and design is predominantly, it's focused on the safety of workers. So workers throughout the construction of whatever is being built, the maintenance of whatever's being built, the decommissioning of whatever's being built, but it's a workplace health and safety sort of check at the design stage. My colleague, Paul, up in Queensland, runs a course on safety and design in transport. And yeah, it overlaps a little bit with safe system assessments and audits and design review, but again, it's got its own entities. And I pop in there DDA. So DDA is the Disability Discrimination Act. DDA audit is a check that everyone of all abilities is able to use the public infrastructure or the infrastructure that is being built. So that could be, it can be done for buildings and things like that. Do the lifts buttons have braille? Are the handrails the right height? Does it have accessible ramps and the like? There is the ability to do that thinking, and it should be done around public road and street infrastructure projects. But again, it's a different beast. Now, there's a little bit of, you can see the overlap here, and I've always been a staunch supporter of lessening red tape in infrastructure projects, but and I'd love to see some of this consolidated into one assessment or one or two assessments. But for now, you just got to understand, yes, there's overlap and they provide different things, and they are all different assessment techniques, and we can use those within infrastructure projects to try to improve safety. I'm happy to talk and explain any of those specifically or dig into those a little bit more as we go. Pop any particular questions you have into the chat, but this course is all around the safe system assessment methodology and ensuring that you understand the process of that and you're able to go out and get involved in safe system assessments. So the fundamental thing we must do first is ensure we all understand this thing called the safe system. And I know a lot of you are probably groaning at this stage because you've heard it so many times. Oh, here we go. We're going to hear the safe system again. Some of you may think you understand what the safe system is. I may sort of open your eyes to some other ways to look at it. Certainly my experience in my many, many years getting the safe system in to practice in Australia, see a lot of people say, yeah, I know the safe system. Yeah. And then you dig in and you ask them questions and really they don't. What they think the safe system is traditional road safety, traditional safety practices, just doing more of it, right? And I'm going to challenge that thinking throughout this course. So this module, and by module, I mean, what you log into for a 2-hour session. We're going to have a look at the principles, the elements / pillars of the safe system. We're going to start talking about kinetic energy thresholds of crash types. And you really need to understand that in order to be able to assess something against these kinetic energy levels. We're going to just do a little bit of traditional approach to road safety versus the safe system approach. And we're going to look at some wider elements of the safe system, behavioral change initiatives, vehicle safety interventions, and the other one being speed, which is kind of an overarching critical element of the safe system approach. So that's what we're going to cover off today. It may be a little bit of a refresher for some of you. It may be new to some of you, and that's okay. I'll go through it. But I do welcome you popping things into the chat, either questioning the approach, wanting clarification. I'm able to help point you at different information. There's lots and lots of literature, really good stuff from Austroads, from other organizations available. Looks like Brett there's popped in a link to the Safe System Approach 101 from AITPM, another great resource. So you can jump on and do that. I'll take you through this, but this is about setting that foundation to understand it, so then you can assess against it, and we'll get to that. We'll take it one step at a time. Hey, there's a Wally. Wally count is 1. No more help from me. All right, for the rest of the course. Max won't help you either. Wallies will appear. Keep an eye out. Keep a tally. When you get to the quiz at the end of the course, at the end of the module, it'll say how many times did Wally appear. All right, just briefly, like safe system, the safe system is the foundation of road safety strategies across Australia. It's the foundation of the jurisdictional strategies. I've popped a few of those on the screen. It is the foundation of the national strategy. We have signed up to a UN protocol, which really sets safe system as that foundation. It is like, it's what I call the operational arm of Vision Zero. So if you've heard Vision Zero, sometimes people sort of talk Vision Zero and safe system in the same, they just say, oh, interchangeable terms. And I say, well, I'd say Vision Zero is very visionary, very, very sort of blue sky, big picture. That's our aim at some point. Safe system is really starting to say, well, how do we do this? Like, what are the principles? What are the decisions? How do you make choices to achieve these end outcomes? That vision of zero death and serious injury is a way away. It's not going to happen, in the next 10 years and the next 20 years. We have jurisdictions targeting different dates around the 2050. The feds have signed up to a 2050 target of zero death and serious injury. It needs some real work and real changes to our operating protocols. Our whole system needs to change in order for that to happen. There's some good work happening to try and chart that path, but nonetheless, the SAFE system gives us something tangible for us to really hold as practitioners and make decisions. Now, the SAFE system assessment framework then is something that a lot of jurisdictions are starting to gravitate towards, because they had these big, high vision statements from ministers and chief executives and the like. And they're saying, well, hang on, how do we, it's all too airy-fairy. Give us something more concrete to make decisions with. And the SAFE system assessment framework was born out of that frustration, where people were saying, well, yeah, okay, what do I do? What do I do? How do I make a call on this? And you'll see then that a lot of jurisdictions are starting to mandate SAFE system assessments within their strategic action plans or their policies around public infrastructure. So actually I have this as a little map there. So you'll be able to see. So I won't go through these in detail for each jurisdiction, but you can see commitments across Australia, except for Western Australia, on the use of the SAFE system assessment framework, which you're going to learn throughout this course. So South Australia is mandating it for projects above certain dollar amounts, as Victoria is. Queensland is mandating SAFE system assessments across any infrastructure investment. New South Wales is the same for public infrastructure investment. And New Zealand, yes, absolutely has mandated it. The new government's just scrapped that thing. So we'll see what happens. It's still currently sitting in Whakatahi NZTA policy requirement. And we've got ACT, NT, and Tassie all integrating it into projects from programs, but little less absolute rigid in the way they're applying it. Now, I see Andrew's popped a question in. Why is WA doing things so differently? Sorry. I'm going to Anwar. Sorry. I told you Andrew. Let's give a prize there, Marissa, because anybody who sort of asks those types of questions deserves a prize. I can't really answer it. I mean, I can give you a theory. I mean, Western Australia operates differently in a whole raft of ways. I mean, they didn't sign up to the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator. They've got very different processes and systems in a whole lot of ways. New Zealand operates a bit closer to the Eastern Seaboard in many different ways, but Western Australia has a road safety management system which they rely on to sort of counter anything being built that I don't believe sort of aligns as well as it should with SAFE system. Yeah, I don't have a really great answer on it. Just Western Australia's gone a different way, as it says in the diagram. Okay, the SAFE system. So this diagram is an interesting one, and it came up. Well, this is when we were first trying to get the SAFE system approach recognised in Australia. And so I was working in the Victorian Road Authority, Vic Roads at the time, in the Road Safety Department, and we were sort of debating, okay, well, what is this approach? So the Europeans are using it, so the Swedes are, the Dutch are using an adapted version, and it's good that, it seems to be working quite well. Actually, I'll give a prize for somebody who can guess the year I'm talking about. This is where, well, it's the year that Australia first adopted the SAFE system approach to road safety, the SAFE system approach. Any guesses on that year? Okay, you don't lose any points for this. No marks are given out or taken away for in-course stuff. It's only after the course you get marked. Good, just have a guess. I'm seeing people throwing them out there. That's excellent. This is where Marissa earns her paycheck. You got to find out, Marissa, who was closest here to 2004 was the actual sign off an adoption of the safe system approach to road safety. I see somebody chucked in 2004 after I said it, so I say give them a prize too.
You
Just
give them a prize. All
yeah,
right.
and give
Yeah.
whoever said, I think it was 2003 came in early.
Yeah,
in the
we've
year,
got
so
a couple
we'll give that.
2003s. Sure, no worries.
Yeah, we'll give out some prizes. So that's a while back, isn't it? I mean, we're over 20 years back where we, Australia adopted this approach to road safety, and this was what the first diagram that was being was adopted, and it was interesting because at the middle of this we've got human tolerance to physical force. Like, what a funny thing to start with for the operation of a road and street network. Like that, yeah, talking about human tolerance to physical force. Biomechanics of injury is what we're talking about. How much force can the human body take before it breaks? It blew people's mind at the time that we started with that as a point within the management of the road and street network. It's a bit more understood now, 20 years later, but anyway, then in this diagram, they had the speeds of travel, they had the vehicles and vehicle safety interventions, and they had the road and roadside. And then, and they drew a circle around that. And we said, okay, well, that's it. That's the safe system. And then the room sort of split. And half the room was saying, yep, that's the safe system. And the other half of the room was saying, I think you've forgotten a pretty important part of the system. And that's the user of the system themselves, the drivers, the walkers, the riders. Yeah, surely they have to be safe and they have to operate safely. They have to be alert. They have to be compliant. Otherwise, we can't have a safe system. And you can see why this maybe split the room, because half the room is going, no, they're going to fail. They're going to make mistakes. And we have to try to use our system to counteract any of those mistakes, those failures. The other half are going, well, come on, like, we can't create a system that's not safe if they're going to be reckless and they're going to fall asleep and they're going to be, do all of these other things. And in the end, what happened was this alert and compliance square got popped around it to sort of keep things moving along. Now, that was a failure to a degree, right? Because a lot of practitioners then just used that as their get out clause for everything. Any crash that happened, somebody wasn't alert and somebody wasn't compliant. I mean, there has to be some, hugely impactful failures of the vehicle or the road system that would cause a crash. I've done near on 250 in-depth fatal crash investigations in my life. Every one of them I can blame a road user for not being alert or compliant at one point in that, right? There are many, many factors involved, but if you go chase and blame, you can always find it. But where does that get us? Anyway, this got scrapped. And then all the jurisdictions started developing their own. Well, there's actually some jurisdictions said this is not appropriate. We don't like this representation of the safe system, so built their own while that one was still live. So that's kind of why they're, and then all of these ones popped up, and you might recognize some of them in there. For simplicity, I'm going to use this one. I could use any of those. They all generally have the same principles, the same ideas in there, but we've got here one where we've got three really important principles of the safe system at the middle. Human bodies are vulnerable. So that's that human tolerance to physical force. How much force can the human body take before it breaks? We've got this absolute acknowledgement that people make mistakes. That is fundamental. So that says we would love everybody to be alert and compliant all the time, but we're realistic. We're talking about humans here. They're going to fall asleep. They're going to get distracted. They're going to drop their coffee in their lap. The kid's going to be screaming in the back seat. They're going to be a young male and they're going to take risks. They're like, you name it, like, these are human things that happen. It's our job as system designers, be that road designers, public policy makers, vehicle designers, whatever it is to start designing for humans, not for some imaginary thing that never makes mistakes and never fails. And that's where this shared responsibility comes in. That is probably the most misinterpreted principle of the SAFE system. And to the point where I'm saying we should just scrap it, like, because people take this completely the wrong way. The reason that's in the SAFE system is to put it back on us. To say you can't blame the road user. We have to take a responsibility here. We have to take that responsibility and say, it doesn't matter what they did. We have to unpack that as a system failure and understand what could we do to intervene to either A, stop that, or B, make it so they can walk away from it, as opposed to they die or they have a debilitating injury for the rest of their life. It's about us. It's not about saying, oh, well, they should have taken some responsibility for their safety. And you can see we've got these elements around there. We've got the vehicles and all the vehicle safety interventions. We've got the roads and the roadsides, which we're going to be talking a lot about, because that's often the one where our safe system assessment is very active. We've got the road users themselves and trying to look to how do we minimize the mistakes that are made, and how do we manage mistakes after they are made. And of course, we've got speeds. The speed this all happens at is going to be critical to the outcomes. So I pop that up there as a little diagram, some of the key principles, very important. And as I say, some of you are very comfortable with those. Now, I should say you're going to get a little stretch break at halftime, time to fill up your water, your coffee, and the like. And I'm going to give you a little. You got some polls and some things that'll pop up on your screen as we go. But I do want to take you through safety culture. So my colleague Ewan Strandroth in Sweden and I sort of really exchanged these ideas around safety culture, taking safety culture from other industries, and he formulated some of this safety culture ladder with others. And so I'm going to represent that to you. And what it is doing is saying, okay, let's take safety culture. Let's go into another industry. Let's look at manufacturing, the production of widgets, some thing that they're producing. And back in the day, you can see the photo there. It was a very open system. Open system meaning that they would get people, they get kids and say, come in, we'll pay you a little bit of money to clean the machines. And then they workers, they'd sort of see who was around and who wanted work, and they'd bring them in and they'd give them a bit of training. They'd say, okay, your job's to push this bit in here, and you do that. And then they were very clear with everybody that it's dangerous. They said, well, this is a very dangerous area. Watch out for this. Don't put your arm in there. This is all quite, highly dangerous environment here. And you've got to protect yourself the best you can. That's what we call a pathological safety culture. It is taking an unsafe environment and pushing an individual into that environment and then demanding they make it safe. They act safely. That's what we call pathological safety culture. The next step up the safety culture ladder is the reactive safety. It says, okay, there are unsafe elements of this system, lots and lots of them. Let's address them as they come along. So when an arm is ripped off in a machine, or a child's crushed, or a worker is crushed or something like that, there's looking at that machine. What can be done to alter that machine? Could we put a guard in front of it? Could we change the operational practice of that machine? The next step up is where the economists get involved, and it's what we call the calculating safety culture. And so this is where you understand that safety is actually an economic investment. And they say, well, hang on, when a kid's arm gets in a machine, we have to stop the whole production line. That costs us X amount of widgets. When the other worker's killed, we often have to pay out the family. And actually, if we do some smart investment, we can just find this nice spot where the money we invest in safety features around the factory returns us more money in widget production. And they came up with this thing called the benefit cost ratio. And, that's where they say, well, okay, if we invest £20,000, pounds back in these days, we'll get £60,000 in return, and that's a benefit cost ratio of 3. So that's the calculating safety culture perspective. Where we want to be, and this is where Safe Systems sits, is what we call a proactive safety culture. And it says we need this extremely high level of safety, right? And we will produce widgets up to that within that safety level. And if we exceed that accepted high level of safety, widget production will stop until we bring it back within check. And then there's a big requirement to continue to invest in the safety culture and the equipment associated with that, safe system that's been created. So when you actually sort of analyze the public road and street network and say, well, where do we fit with a safety culture in that whole system perspective, you discover that we straddle across a lot of this, as some emerging industries do. Most industries do sit, certainly like aviation, rail, shipping are all pretty much in the proactive with a tiny little bit of calculating. And they're very occasional reactive. The road system is highly pathological in the sense that we know it's dangerous, and we hand over licenses and we tell them how dangerous it is, and we say you have to act safely out there. We've got reactive elements. We when crashes happen, when deaths happen, we go out, we look at it, we try to say what can we change. A lot of calculating, highly BCR driven in a lot of safety investment programs. And there are elements of proactivity that do exist in our road and street network. And, they're things, they range from things like school speed zones, I would say are a highly proactive safety intervention where it doesn't fit into these other categories. We don't tell the kids, well, it's all your responsibility. Well, we do tell, there's still we're still trying to get kids to behave appropriately and understand the system, but we don't wait for kids to be killed before a school speed zone goes in. Calculating school speed zones are a disaster in terms of a standard economic transport model. If you analyze that properly, you just go, well, you never invest in that, right? Because I can explain that very quickly. Like, the way you do a transport economic assessment for these general style projects is, what's it going to cost in terms of signs and lines and that? And that's not much. What is it going to cost in terms of travel time for a driver? And you take every little bit of travel time through an area and you add all of those up to get this pool of time that it's so-called costing the economy, because people, they say, well, that's an extra 20 seconds they could have been working, paying taxes and all of that. And then you sum all of that up, you multiply it by a standard rate of return on an Australian, which is like $88 an hour or something, in terms of what we think we could get out of them. And that's your cost, right? And then you work out, well, how much are we going to get as a benefit? Like, how many lives are we going to save? How many kids are going to be saved? And what dollar value do we put on that? And so the economists will just put a dollar value on a kid, or whatever it is, $4 million, and multiply that through. And they say, no, not enough kids killed. It's reprehensible. We just don't think of it like that for school speed zones, but we think about it like that for the rest of the road network, don't we? Yeah, well, is there really enough people killed on that road to reduce the speed limit, or is there really enough, to invest in that continuous barrier system? Anyway, so that's calculating. And I was talking about proactive things there. So yeah, it's this is me in 3 minutes trying to explain something that's highly complex, but just give you an idea of sort of where we are trying to transform our system, trying to pull it out of this highly pathological and bring it up to this reactive system, the way many other industries have successfully done. It's complicated because ours is a massive network and massive system we've inherited. It's got so many areas that are not safe, and there is an absolute culture of pushing that back to the driver and the walker and the rider as full responsibility, and we've got to challenge that. All right, now we're going to try having a little poll pop up on your screen. Now, you're not marked on this, remember. This is just to see how you're going, if you've been listening and the like. The poll should pop up. Now, we know occasionally a firewall blocks it or the like, so it should be on your screen now. And we've gone through the first question. The second one we really haven't, but I'm going to get you to have a guess. Remember, you're not being marked on it. So I'll leave that there for 15, 20 seconds, and then we'll get back into it. We're doing pretty well. We're getting some good responses here. Give another 10 seconds. Have a guess. Not being marked on it. Oh, Marissa, you better give Ben a prize. Ben Smith gets a prize because he's right there. I said 2003, but also 2005 is the same distance off 2004. All right, let's end that, and let's share the results, shall we, and just see how people are going here. So, which of the following is not a key principle of the SAFE system? So aim for no mistakes on the road. Well, that's not a key principle. I mean, we would love that, right? Not realistic, though. Not going to happen. We've got humans. So what we want to think about is minimize and manage. Minimize mistakes and manage them. And do everything we can to minimize, and but then we got to get in that space of managing. How do we manage a mistake so it doesn't result in death or serious injury? And then got a good spread there. Most people going the 44 kilometers an hour for Usain Bolt crossing the finish line in that world record 100-meter sprint. I think it was in Germany. And 44 is correct. I've asked some of you that before. I use it as my little entry into talking about biomechanics of injury and human tolerance to physical force. So, I think I hit stop as Marissa. Anyway, we're good. Okay, so let's talk about that then. Okay, so there's only so much force the human body can handle before it breaks. And I like to say, okay, Usain Bolt's running at 44 kilometers an hour. That's the fastest a human's got to, off the speed of their own legs on flat, not too much wind behind them, right? Okay, 44 kilometers an hour. If we parked a Hilux, Toyota Hilux at the end of his lane and he slams into that, is he going to survive? And the answer is yes. He most likely will, because, well, A, he's like a hulk of a human and can handle a lot of force. B is that there is a general correlation between a human's maximum running speed and their ability to withstand that force of stopping abruptly at that speed. So old people, for example, they can't run that fast. They can't run anywhere near that fast, nor can they withstand a force of that. Most people, you can see here, run around maximum speeds around that 20 to 30 kilometers per hour. Usain Bolt's off in the next level, obviously. So you can see here that the great man's up here on this curve. What is this curve? This is collision speed of collision, not speed limit. And to put that aside for now, this is just the speed of impact of a passenger vehicle striking a pedestrian. And this is fatality probability. This is a chance it results in death. This is for the entire community, though. This is not just for Usain Bolt. This is for anybody. Usain Bolt's just up, he's up this curve a bit. But what you see is that around the 20, 30 kilometer per hour, it's pretty survivable. Most people will survive that. It goes really bad, really quick after 30 kilometers an hour. And when you're up in the 60s and 70s, we're pretty confident it's going to result in death. So the human body evolved to sort of withstand these sorts of things. Yep. Okay, hopefully that streamed through for you. He's okay. Okay, he broke a couple of ribs, but he recovers to lead a normal, healthy life. All right? Those are within biomechanics of injury. We understand this crash mechanism and these crash forces and the biomechanics of injury for other crash types. Okay, so if you've got here in the red line, what we've got is bullet vehicle, the bullet vehicle here. This is what we call the target vehicle. The bullet vehicle speed in the crash down here, collision speed. And the target vehicle is the one which is going to, the driver there would be the one that's killed. Passenger side would be passenger as well. So we see there that around that 30, 40, 50 kilometer per hour, it's generally survivable. Up there at the 80, 90, it's unsurvivable for the target vehicle occupants. And for head-on crashes, you'll see that we have that around the 50, 60, 70 kilometer per hour mark before it really kicks up. And that's, you know, each vehicle is a bullet vehicle and a target vehicle in a head-on crash. Now, that's each individual vehicle speed, not the closing speed or anything like that. But we think about the forces on the individual driver, and they're driving in there at 70 kilometers an hour. This is assuming, you know, they hit a vehicle the same mass, at the same speed, and a frontal impact. They go from 70 to 0. So it's a 70 kilometer per hour crash. There's a good Mythbusters episode where they crash cars into walls at a speed and then into each other at the same speed to prove this, that there's no extra forces, you know, pushed one another. It would be if it was a tiny little smart car and hit by a road train and it went back at 70 kilometers an hour, or if you were squashed in between the two or something like that. But in the crash, the biomechanics of injury and understanding crash forces on the vehicle occupants, you do that. Now, you'll see sometimes we pop up this little thing. So when you download the PDFs, and I think Marissa's going to put in a slightly newer version, I might have chucked in that diagram of the Australian jurisdictions and their safe system assessment stance just very recently. So we may not have had that. So we'll put those in. But any of those in the PDF, you can click on that, get a little more information on some of these things through our safe system snippets. Now, there's lots and lots of work happening across Australia, across the world, in trying to dig into these biomechanics of injury further, trying to get more refined on the crash speeds and crash types and slightly newer vehicles, and adding, you know, serious debilitating injuries into this and these sort of things. There's some great stuff happening at the Centre for Automotive Safety Research in the University of Adelaide on that at the moment, and others. But generally, like, these still remain pretty reasonable. People argue about them, but generally pretty reasonable in the sense that we say, we know things are going to go really bad for a pedestrian after speeds of about 30 kilometers an hour. We know it's going to go really bad really quickly for side impact around the 50 and 70 for head-on. It gives us a starting point. But a little sort of spoiler alert for a couple of modules away. What we need to do in a safe system assessment is start to put a score to how bad the crashes we're predicting are going to be. So we need to quantify the severity. And you can see here, we're going to quantify between a 4 and a 0. And this little diagram is just something to help out a little bit with the guidance. It's still going to require professional judgment, and you'll debate it and ah about it. But you can see lots of crash types there and the speed that crash happens. And generally, you're able to sort of understand, okay, You know, if somebody's hitting a cyclist at 70 kilometers an hour, we're in the really, really bad territory here. Even in 20, we're into, you know, it's better territory, but it's not perfect. So it gives us a bit of that understanding. A couple more little things from me before I unleash you on a little activity and give you a stretch break. Keep an eye out for that Wally, by the way. It can be sneaky, our friend Wally the Wombat. This diagram is the bane of my existence. I've been working in road safety for 25 years at least, and this diagram pops up all the time, and it really frustrates me. And it is not because it's wrong. Let me explain what the diagram is. It is a crash causation study. So that's one of them. There's a whole heap of them out there, right? And what it is these really big, in-depth research reports by universities or university students or PhD people that they grab like thousands of crashes, and they do these massive root cause analysis, and they really dig into crash causation, trying to understand what happened and why, and what is the root cause here, what's happened in this crash, what's caused this crash to happen. And every time they do these, they come out with road user. In this 2003 study, it was drivers, but it plays pretty well with motorcyclists, with pedestrians and cyclists and the like. Is 90 to 95% of crash causation. Driver error, road user error. The roads play a role, overlapping role sometimes. Sometimes the road's confusing. Sometimes there's some sort of visual deceit. Sometimes there's actual inherent things in the road, like a massive pothole or a tree falls on the road, or something, big sign falling or something like that. The vehicle and vehicle malfunction occasionally into a little bit, but they're very, very small parts of it, right? And I don't dispute that. I don't dispute it at all. I mean, these are brilliant researchers, but the issue is that is given then to people that are managing road safety. And what do? They go, well, it's 94% of the issue. Let's fix this driver. Let's fix drivers, right? And the problem is we've been trying to do that for a long, long time. And really, changing humans is hard. Yes, we continue to work to get better outcomes, to get better behavior, to try to manage this. But at some point, you start to understand, okay, we've had system failures here. And it's not just about crash causation. These are causation studies. You need to think about the outcome studies, right? So I think that's valuable work, and it should be done, and we should continue to look into it. But you need to understand, no. Even if we get all of this stuff right, they're still going to fail. How does our system cater for failure and manage these failures? And so if you look at this and say, no, this is a system failure. Yes, a mistake has happened by the driver. Can we lessen the chance of that happening? But mistakes will happen. How does our system intervene? How does it manage this? How does it manage the crash, the energy? Does the vehicle kick in to take over? Does the infrastructure kick in to take over? Is it all happening at a speed where the end outcome will be not death and serious injury? Now, Austroads popped these driver excess, driver inexperience, and had little bits sitting outside the system. I personally just plonk them in. I go, well, driver excess. So somebody driving 200 kilometers an hour down the wrong way of the motorway, that's a system failure. How on earth has a vehicle let that happen? Like, it's not a technology issue. We can make it so vehicles can't do that. So again, if you just push all of that blame and then you go, well, you've got to fix that driver. Well, you go, okay, yes, I agree. That's inappropriate. And we should be doing lots of things to try to, make sure that's hardly ever done. But it's going to continue in some element, and we've got to change our system around it. They don't do it in other industries. Anyway, I'm on a slight rant here. CASA, the Centre for Automotive Safety Research, University of Adelaide, did a wonderful Austroad study, and it's, if you want some good bedtime reading, it's a nice, juicy 300-page report, Human Error in Road Transport. And it's great because it unpacks human error, and we've got slips, lapses, mistakes, unintentional violations before we get to deliberate violations, which are, intentionally going out to deviate from set rules and procedures. And if we unpack this, about 70% of death and serious injury sits above this line. Okay, the 30% down here is highly concerning and, really dangerous. Like, we're talking about people high speed through residential areas, on illicit drugs, and doing these really inappropriate things, and really hooning and speeding and the like, and police chases and all these sorts of things. But wow, look at this. These are people generally trying to do the right thing, or sort of, in a general set of rules, and the system failing them. Now, I actually like safe system. To me, we're pretty good. If we can transform our system, we can pretty much eliminate all of that. And we've got some good modeling around that. We can get some of this, but there's a residual. We just really, we need some major sort of changes in a whole lot of bits and pieces. I was part of an Austroads team doing a study once into recidivist offenders in roads, and there was this brilliant statement in there that I didn't write it, but it said, people drive the way they live. And I'm like, yeah, okay. So we have these people with massive problems in society and the like, and it's translated onto their way they drive as well. So it's actually more than just a road infrastructure, particular. It's a societal issue as a whole, and we've got to really transform our thinking around here. But all of this, well, that's just us. We can change things. We can make it. So, these ones are really almost eliminated. Marissa, I've seen you pop on screen there.
Yeah, Ken, we've got a question that's come in. How many current crashes are typically caused by system failure?
Yeah, it's a good question. Definitely a prize-worthy question. Whoever's popped that in. So it changes slightly jurisdiction to jurisdiction, and there's a lot of work actually in an Austroads project at the moment, charting a path to the elimination, death, and serious injury, which is trying to unpack that. Generally, I'd say about 80%. Is what we know now. You can make an argument to say, well, hang on, the 20% is still a system failure because it's happened, but I preface that on 80% in terms of our known system changes that we could say that our system failed there. Like, we could have, within what's in our current toolkit, altered the road environment, the vehicles, to mean that this did not happen or did not result in death or serious injury. That other 20%, we still go, well, we don't know how we could have changed that. And that's a lot of motorcycle crashes. It is some of this really, high-end deliberate violators, and a few other things. I think everybody deserves a bit of a stretch break, Marissa, and go fill up the coffee. So what we're going to do, though, it's not as easy as that. I'm going to make them work as well. But no, do go to have a stretch and then come back, and then what we're going to get you to do is do this little mix and match exercise where we have the traditional approach to road safety on one side there, and we've got where we're trying to go with a safe system. Now, these, could link one to a few of them, but you make a guess. Now, we'll do this with a poll that'll pop up on screen. Just have a guess. So we're going, say, from victim blaming to what? To effort to create a forgiving system, or to maximizing safe mobility, and you'll just guess on those. If the poll hasn't popped up, don't worry. You could type it in the chat with letters and numbers if you wanted. Some of them could go to multiple ones. It's just a way to consolidate our thinking. You've got 6 minutes from now. Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we'll share well, actually, maybe we won't. Maybe I'll just show it on screen. I had a quick look. There's some general uniformity there. Thank you for your input, but let's have a look here. So again, another Austroads little diagram here, and some could probably go to a few others, but yeah, so there has been a traditional way of looking at road crashes, and it is very victim blaming in its essence. People don't like to say it's victim blaming, but if you unpack it, really is, where you're trying to find the blame and the like. We want to move to a way of recognizing human error, minimizing its consequence, and understanding that there's that shared responsibility, but a system change is required. So road user education and compliance, well, we're not going to stop trying to minimize mistakes and get people better out there, but it's an understanding and an effort to create this forgiving system around this and understand human failure. So crash reduction, we're really focusing on the severe injury minimization these days. So yes, we would like to stop all minor bumps and scrapes and bits and pieces, but we really want to target the death, the debilitating serious injury as our prime thing that we want to remove off the transport network. Yeah, so there was a little bit of 4 pillars actioned independently, almost like silos, but now a real understanding this is a highly complex interacting system, and we want to optimize the system to reduce death and serious injury. And that mobility safety balance, just finding that right point where we kill enough of our community and seriously injure enough of our community, but we move the cars around at a high speed that we are able to get people moving around. Well, that trading off human life for other transport objectives is not where we want to see under a safe system. We understand that a transport system is about moving people and goods. There's no point having a transport system unless you can do that. But it's about saying we will set this safe point and we will move it all within that envelope. That doesn't mean we're going to stop everything or slow everything down significantly. It's just about understanding, having a system around that, and we'll explain that later. Yeah, so don't worry if you went to another couple there. There's a few that could go into different spots. I like this little statement that Ian Cameron made a while back. Ian Cameron's a Western Australian. This was in a UN forum, I'm pretty sure. We need a paradigm shift in road safety policy to stop the road death epidemic, and we need it now. It's unrealistic to expect that education and enforcement alone will bring the needed step change. Even road users who know and follow the rules make mistakes. A safe system creates an environment in which simple mistakes will no longer kill people. I would say kill and seriously injure people, but yeah, that sums things up quite nicely. And I'm going to start moving in shortly after Marissa asks me a question, it looks like, into starting to just say, okay, well, let's get into these elements of the system and understand what specific aspects we can change that create this safe system environment. Marissa.
Yeah, Ken, Ben has asked, of the human error reasons, are there stats in terms of the non-deliberate and deliberate crashes and their severity? So, he's popped in an example, did 30% of deliberate crashes result in 70% of serious and fatal crashes? Brett has just followed on and popped in a link to The CASA at the University of Adelaide.
Yep.
Have some stats there.
Yep. There's a lot of complexity to that. And so, yeah, that CASA study, I'm pretty sure the one I haven't opened up, which one Brett's done there, that was also running parallel. Well, that was part of that Ostrode's work as well, in understanding human error. But essentially, like that, where I said 30%, it's 30% of the death and serious injury from these deliberate violators, and they are causing death and serious injury to others as well. And we also understand that there's just a huge amount of people doing things that we don't define as these deliberate errors, like falling asleep, being distracted. Yeah, I mean, falling asleep is a huge one, by the way. Being distracted, being confused, being, just not concentrating, all sorts of reasons. And then these things happen because the system inherently has this failure in it. All right, let's jump into something here. And this is a little bit off where we've been going. But okay, here you can see a wire rope safety barrier system in a narrow flushed median. It's a 2+1 system. So we've got 2 lanes going this way. We've got 1 lane going that way. Every kilometre or so, it will change which side of the road has the overtaking opportunity. It's got this continuous barrier system down the middle. There you go. You can see some more of it. Okay. It used to be a road with a double white line down the middle. And that was all that was separating the 100 km/h streams of vehicles. Put this in. Now, this was not an easy thing to get in place. There was a lot of resistance to it for a lot of reasons, some technical stuff, some general stuff. Actually, I might pause there and throughout the planning, development, and design of this treatment, going from a single or a double white line to expanding it out, putting the central barrier system down, what are some of the challenges you think the project team faced in terms of planning, design, and getting their funding and getting it approved to go out there and actually build it? Pop them in the chat. I'll just see what people come up with here. Okay. Remember, no marks for getting anything wrong. Okay, we've got good. They're coming in now. Oh, coming in thick and fast now. I'll look through them in a second. Yeah, chuck them in there. Chuck them in there. Okay, good. I'll keep popping them in. I'm just going to talk to a few of these. Anwar's popped in the maintenance cost of the barrier system. So it's going to get struck. It's going to cost money to repair, to pay suppose, to get the crew out there. Who's got that money? So prize there. Okay. So Brett's got a good one as well. The access into properties, out of properties. Are we cutting that off? Are people going to have to drive down the road and for their driveway to turn around to come back the other way? Prize there. So width of the road to meet the deflection area. Antonio with a technical one in there. So yeah, the barrier system, and we'll talk about this a little bit later on in future modules. I mean, this type of barrier system deflects. It's got an area of deflection. If a vehicle is to hit it, that'll deflect into the oncoming lane a bit. So prize there. And we're on to Rachel with property access as well. Yeah, chucking a prize in there. Ooh, we've got a username in here, Gov 106180 with maintenance and access as well. If Marissa can dig out who that is, a prize will come in. These are our quick ones. I'm going to see if anybody had anything different there. Oh yeah, a few people onto this deflection. Okay. Oh, perceived dangers from motorcycles is a good one. Yep, the motorcyclists had some stuff to say about this. Financial, is it worth the investment? Have enough people been killed here to warrant this? Freight, Kayleen, I'll give a prize for that one. That was a really interesting one. It was overdimensional vehicles, and this is these large vehicles and large agricultural machines. Could they fit through? There's now something in the middle of the road. They can't take up the whole road. Sight lines, it's another Very interesting one there. So you've got multiple sightlines to think about. Sightlines out of access points is the barrier system blocking sightlines there. Forward sight distance around curves as well. Does the barrier system cover that off? So I think we better give Sonia a prize there for that. The list goes on. Oh, terminals, transitions. Oh, Mel, prize for Mel. Last one there. And sorry if I missed you on prizes, but a few were repeating, so I jumped through a few. But what I like this is the challenge with changing the norm, isn't it? All right, a road separated by some white lines is everywhere in these regional areas. It's what people are used to. It doesn't impede their, access and these sort of things. And if people fall asleep and they crash head on, or they get distracted and they crash head on, they should stop that. They should not do it. They should sleep before they drive. They should, be more alert, be more compliant. Well, of course, they continue to do it. Somebody else does it, and we don't get anywhere. But when you put this barrier system down the middle, it does not matter why. Causation is out of the equation, right? It doesn't matter if they fell asleep, they were intoxicated, they dropped their cigarette in their lap, they looked around because the kids were fighting each other and they drifted into the other. The barrier system does not care. The system intervenes and stops it, resulting in a head-on crash of high severity, and instead results in these more minor injuries, right? And the thing, and the reason I wanted to bring this up is a few-fold. One is that we're trying to change the system. It's going to face resistance and its changes, and we've got to work through these issues, right? Most of these are very easy to sort of work through. They take time and you've got to have a think about it and chat, but you can work through these. The second one is that, unfortunately, road safety audits don't help us a lot with this type of project. Okay, they do in a very detailed sense help us out a little bit, but a road safety audit has a mandate to only identify risk. That is their job. We're planning to put this central barrier system in this narrow flush median, do a road safety audit on it. The audit will come back with risk, 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 risk. That's their job. A safe system assessment, however, comes back with, here's how it is in the existing road environment. This is how far away from safe system the separation by white lines is. And when you put the barrier system down, here's how much better it is aligned with safe system principles. Here's the advantage. And then it'll get into a few of those specific points of saying, well, these things could be issues. So safe system assessments facilitate our change in the whole system. Road safety audits can, in some circumstances, actually counter us being able to make these changes because people get scared by it. And so really the road safety audits in this, I felt, hampered the project, put it back years, because they weren't wrong. They said, okay, is this going to deflect into the oncoming lane? Right, okay. Yeah, can we look to make it a bit wider and, the challenges associated with that? But yeah, to be able to stand back and say, well, the alternative is a white line compared to the chance it might deflect a little bit into the oncoming lane, which we know vehicles don't run that line. They run that line anyway, so we're probably fine from that. And that deflection space is based on a car hitting at a 25-degree angle at 100 kilometers an hour, and it's only there for a split second. So anyway, my point being that safe system assessments provide this wonderful facilitation of innovation. And then once you're locked in, I think that's when an audit can assist in maybe some of the very specific parts of the job. Anyway, that one got in and it did get hit. Of course it got hit. That's like it was expected to get hit. And the region got a call from somebody, and they said, when you got a call from a member of the public, and I'm sure some of you have worked in regional road office, and you're gonna get shouted at here for something. They actually were calling just to say thank you. They said, I wanted to say thanks for whoever put that barrier system in. I was driving along. I've driven this road for last 20 years. It's never had that barrier system. This time it did, and somebody came directly at us, and they hit the barrier system, and they didn't hit us. And yeah, I just want to say thanks. So that engineer, they were smart enough to get the comms people and say, oh, you should talk to this guy. And they made a little video. We've popped that video into the learning management system. I encourage you to watch it. I think it's a really great demonstration of safe system in action. It is. I mean, they absolutely, one of the drivers absolutely admits, I fell asleep. I had a big day. I shouldn't have driven, but I did. And yeah, I fell asleep. And they're reasonable, normal people, and the system saved them in that case. Marissa.
Yeah, we do have a link to that video in our LMS, which I'll point to a bit later on. Another question that's come in: what about the risk of roadside hazards such as stable drains and the cut slope face? Would barriers not be required there?
Yeah, so it's a really good point, and another prize there, because we are sort of looking at the risk of head-on crash there, or a bit of run-off road as well when you put these central barrier systems down. You remember some vehicles without a barrier system, they will get to the other side of the road. Some of them will do a double yaw crash, and anyway. But the point being that yes, this is not 100% safe system alignment. It's taken us a massive step forward. The roadside would have a look into that. We will talk about roadside hazard management and how we think about roadsides and safe system, but it's a really good point. Yeah, you're nicely honing in on different features of these projects. Now, I'm going to talk to you sort of briefly here about the road users and what we know we can do to minimize mistake making or inappropriate activity and the like. Acknowledging the limitations we have. Then I'm going to talk to you about vehicles and speeds. And then I'm just going to start giving a little introduction to roads and roadsides, which does dominate our focus in a safe system assessment. But a safe system assessment acknowledges the system nature of what we're looking at. And so we do need to understand a little bit about road users, vehicles, speeds, and possibly post-crash care as well, which is sort of this extra element that is sometimes linked in with the safe system and sometimes not. So that's, how quickly do we get to injured parties and how good is the medical intervention. Let's start with safe road users. So we know some things that can improve road user behavior, and those are education, encouragement, enforcement, and then I've put graduated licensing systems there. I mean, it is entry into the system. Like, who do we let actually into the system, and how do we let them into the system to drive, to walk, to ride, whatever it is. When we talk about education, there's a fundamental set of little humans are the best to educate. And we know that across everything, not just road safety. They take on the messages. They can be nice little conduits, little Trojan horses to parents with messages around road safety. I mean, certainly you get the kids to all be aware that everybody should be wearing a seatbelt in a car, and then they'll tell everybody to wear a seatbelt. And there's some really good advantages through that. Young drivers are particularly at risk. So we know that young drivers have a lot going on as they are let into the driving system. It's an exciting time in life. There's lots of parties. You're allowed to start drinking. There's lots of other exciting substances to take, and lots of late night activities and all sorts of things going on. As you're very aware, you can cast your mind back to it, no doubt. Or you've maybe got some kids in around these ages. And some things we know that sort of work around this is time on the public road network. So with a supervising driver, so as a young driver can build an understanding of where risks come from and how to just navigate around the public road system, they improve in terms of their risk reduces. We know that vehicle safety features are just really top notch for young drivers. The irony being a lot of the time that our most unsafe drivers, these ones, are in our most unsafe vehicles in the fleet, in the public fleet. And it's almost like some parents see it as a bit of a rite of passage. You know, you've got to save up to get your first car, and it's an old bomb. And I drove an old Datsun, and I remember that, and the brakes hardly worked, and these sort of things. Yeah, we need to flip that and really understand the safety implications of that. Most of the time, I'll talk to parents. I often just say, we'll just swap cars with your young driver. I mean, your car basically drives itself, and it's going to intervene in any incident. And it's got so many airbags you wouldn't believe, and the brakes are exceptional. Like, they're the safest driver. They're the lowest risk driver. So we got that one around the wrong way. And the other one we just flag is for your interest maybe, but also understanding, is advanced driver training courses, like where you learn to get out of different skids and high-speed braking and these sorts of things. They increase the chance of death and serious injury for young drivers. Yeah, I said increase. That's counterintuitive, because you'd think better skills makes for safer drivers. But in this, and this is super well researched across the globe, it actually instills a level of confidence that they take more risks. And the small reduction in risk they might get from a few extra skills is absolutely swamped by their increased risk taking. Really well researched one. Now, this is sort of behavioral change type stuff, but it's an interesting one. It's a lovely little campaign by the Transport Accident Commission of Victoria, which is trying to say, if you text and drive, your kids are going to text and drive. Interesting approach, because a lot of jurisdictions will go, if you text and drive, you will be killed or seriously injured. And this guy goes, no, I won't. I'm a good driver. I only do it when it's safe. And he's probably been doing it for 10 years, 20 years, and he hasn't been killed. So your message doesn't make any sense. And they just disassociate with that. But the idea that their interaction could influence something immediate like that and tangible like that is very effective. Now, this also plays out with something a little often closer to home for infrastructure engineers, which is like speed limits and setting speed limits. If you're changing a rural road from 100 kilometers an hour to 80 kilometers an hour, and you go and you tell the public you're doing that for their safety, I don't believe you. Because they've been driving that road for 40 years or whatever it is, and they've never had an incident, and it's only those hoon drivers or those people who can't, tourists, or they'll make some excuses up. It's never them. And the reason for that is the difference between individual risk and collective risk. Individual risk is low. An individual can probably text and drive their whole life, and they're not going to be killed. The risk is very low at an individual level. But when every driver, or a whole lot of drivers are doing it, the collective risk is huge. It's the same with speed. Like, you're driving at 100 on that road, probably every day of their life, they'll be able to do it at an individual level. But all of the people driving that road, it is a significant risk. And we are not talking the same language. We'll often communicate to people around our safety interventions at them like they're a collective, and they hear it as an individual, and it's completely different language around risk. So just something to be aware of. Anyway, what works? A whole school approach, so integrating safety throughout the whole education, combining education with other partner activities, education to the community around speed, and then doing speed enforcement at the same time works well. Community education. So our job is to ensure that community groups, those volunteering their time, are doing things that we know have evidence base behind them, that they're going to work. They're not investing in things that we know are useless or maybe make things worse, which we do know can happen. So graduated licensing, so understanding that you restrict young drivers with many restrictions. And as they get a bit more experience, they graduate in, and we lessen their restrictions, and you graduate them through managing that risk profile. So targeting especially motivated groups. So parents are like really an untapped resource here in the road safety community around how we can get better safety outcomes. And you need to contextualize that for the parents in terms of their controls that they can put in place, or their assistance they can provide with safer vehicles or the like. Action programs that change the way road users use the road network. I'll talk a little bit about that shortly. And I think I've covered off a few of the things that don't work. Fear tactics I haven't really covered off. So shock and awe campaigns where you show, very disturbing graphic TV ads or images to try to scare the public into better behavior. That doesn't work from the perspective of changing individual driver behavior for the cohorts we're targeting. It actually, interestingly, a fear tactic campaign will be the most influential on the safest drivers, and it'll either stop them driving or, really impact them. The high risk drivers disassociate with a lot of this. And fear tactics do play a role sometimes, but it's usually setting a platform for legislative change. If you're going to put in more laws or the like, you can scare the public, then put that in, they understand the connection. Skills-based driver training I covered off. One-off events, you want to do that as a coordinated effort. Not much in driver simulators we know of at this stage that is actually evidence-based and proven. Some studies out there from, that show some good impacts of driver simulators. Dig into that a little bit and see who's funded that research and whether there's any independence in it whatsoever. It's something, a little tip there. Membership or participation in car racing clubs or go-karting clubs or these sort of things, it's very similar to skills-based driver training. They take more risks. And just informing people of the statistics of a road or these sort of things doesn't change driver behavior. Again, it can be a decent platform for legislative change, for changes, even infrastructure changes. It can be a reason why you're doing things. So it's not a bad approach to go. I like this little diagram. I mean, this is used very much to explain the graduated licensing systems and schemes that are in place, and to show why you put restrictions on, people entering new P-platers or the like. So learner drivers have that supervising driver next to them. And these are the number of deaths you can see there for learner drivers. And then it jumps up and it comes down over time, and then it flattens out. Now, you can see why that you want to do lots of restrictions on these early drivers to try to minimize that risk as much as you can. The other thing, though, that I often use this for is to say, because you can do this this is pure numbers of crashes in Victoria. I think this one was over a 5-year period. But if you even do this by crashes per vehicle kilometre travelled, what you discover is it's a fairly similar curve. There is almost no safer driver than our 0 to 6 month driver. They are the safest. So anybody who comes to you and says it's about people not knowing how to drive, and if everybody had, Daniel Ricciardo style driving skills, we would have a safe road system. That's just absolutely not true. It's not about driver skills. You need basic ability to control the vehicle and understand things. But there's so many other factors involved in that. Marissa, it looks like there's a fair bit of chat going on. I am not able to follow all of that while I talk, so I'll let you jump in at some point and tell me if I need to answer anything, or if there's just a bit of chat going on amongst participants, which we'd love to see. That's a great thing. Encouragement. Oh, sorry, you're there.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I was waiting for you to finish up on one slide. We've got a couple of questions. Yeah, lots of chat coming in between participants, which is great to see. Couple questions. Ken, do penalties help, like double demerit points or similar campaigns?
Yeah,
Um,
that's probably one I don't quite feel qualified to answer. And I mean, yeah, I will answer everything I know good research behind, and I don't. But what I will do is take that one and I'll ask some people I know at a few of the universities and the like who have done studies in these areas, and I'll get back to you. Can we just note that one, Marissa?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there was just a follow-up to that, a demerit points, alcohol test, part of the fear tactics. Yeah, no, they were all of the questions for the moment. Just some more chat going on, but that's about it.
I should clarify that the demerit points and alcohol tests, they're not fear tactic campaigns. I mean, that's so they're enforcement techniques essentially for general deterrence and specific deterrence. But no, fear tactics and fear campaigns that we talked about is where you show graphic ads of death and people with debilitating injuries to try to like go, oh my god, that could happen as a result of inappropriate driving or speeding or the like. And there was a history of a lot of that in different jurisdictions. You'll see a lot less of that going on these days. I personally think back in the 90s where there was just absolute flood of that, it wasn't the worst thing to do because what it was really doing was setting this platform for us to absolutely blanket the country in seatbelt legislation, breath testing, speed cameras, which like and you've made the public aware of the problem and you scared them a bit in a general sense, and then they resist less on that. They still resist. They resist less on that change. Okay. Yes, I was stumped. So that is definitely a prize-worthy. And I'm racking my brain on a demerit point study I read a long, long time ago, but it's probably so far out of date that I shouldn't quote that. It was a Max Cameron from Monash University Accident Research Centre study, but I'm going to find out. Okay, encouragement. Incentivizing campaigns work. If you pay people, they drive safer. I mean, sounds funny, but it seems to work. That is one around, like, if you have 0 demerit points, when you graduate through to your full license, we'll give it to you for free. But if you've got demerit points, it costs you $1,000 or whatever it is, $900. Interestingly, it can alter some behavior. So that's an interesting one. Advertising and marketing of specific behaviors. Just general, drive safely campaigns really don't work. You've got to give them specifics. And so things like, take a break every 2 hours, something specific like that is good and makes for change. Very hard to understand with some, general marketing, behavioral change campaigns, what is effective and what's not. They often just use recall. Do people remember the message as something, but is that actually going to lead to action? Comedy is effective for recall for our most target audiences, which is young males. They're our highest risk, but comedy is highly effective in them recalling a campaign. And on that, I think in the learning management system, we've put sort of top 5 road safety campaign ads with a comedy base from around the world. Some of them, are we getting massive action change out of it? It's hard to tell. We want to change a culture of road safety as well. We talked about victim blaming, and we've talked about holistic system change is our aspiration, and we want to try to integrate that in. So you'll see a lot more as we go forward of things like other people make mistakes, so slow down. So acknowledging mistakes are happening out there. I'm not trying to say to the individual, hey, you make mistakes, you should slow down. No, well, trying to separate that out. You may have seen Graham before. Graham's a life-size sculpture, scarily sort of human-y looking. But it was sort of to talk about this biomechanics of injury of the human body and the human tolerance to physical force, and saying that is actually what you need to look like to survive some of the common forces on the road network. And then there's a whole campaign based around trying to redesign the system, the road network, to make Graham look more human. And we worked a lot with the TAC on sort of some of that design of the infrastructure and putting in raised crossings and wire rope systems and managing speed limits, and you can get Graham to change back more to a human. So enforcement works. I talked about strategically we need to think about how we do this. It's a highly resource intensive thing to do, but it can be quite effective. I talked about specific and general deterrence. So specific deterrence is the philosophy that if you have done something and been caught, you won't do it again. That's the theory. General deterrence is that knowledge that you could be caught for this. And you won't do it. Now, visual presence is excellent on that general deterrence. And there is what we call the halo effect, which is where a driver sees presence of a police officer or an enforcement device, and there's a halo of excellent behavior, and then it fades off. So we can understand this improvement. And the technology is coming along leaps and bounds. I mean, certainly we have had for a long time red light cameras, speed cameras. They are effective. They reduce the chance of somebody violating. We have point-to-point speed enforcement, which will take a number plate photo at one point, and then down the road 10 kilometers or something, another photo, and you get average speed, which is very effective also, and often seen as a fairer way to do it. Neither here nor there on that, but yeah, I mean, yeah. The in-vehicle enforcement ability is also there very well. The technology is not holding us back here. It's the political will often to do it. I mean, alcohol interlocks are commonplace, so if a vehicle driver has had drink driving offences, then one of these devices goes in. They can't start their car unless they're 00 BAC, and it beeps randomly throughout their journey, and they've got 5 minutes to blow into it again, which is version 2 after we discovered, a cohort of people were getting others to blow into their devices so they could start their car, and a few other things anyway. But certainly interventions around just maximum speed vehicles can go. I mean, ridiculous that the vehicles on the public road network can go the speeds that they can. Like, there's no need for that at all. They're so complex as to why that is in place, and you're fighting the massive multinational worldwide car sellers and manufacturers and everything like that. So it's huge, but there are some things filtering into place, such as MyKey, like different controls. So this is one where you give your kid a key and it just sets maximum speed the vehicle can go, and traction control has to stay on, and you can even set the stereo to not go past a certain volume and things like that. There's those sort of interventions. There's a massive opening for workplaces to start filtering this stuff in. Workplaces need to see the driving task as part of the workplace and should treat it as an occupational health and safety risk. And there's no reason why these sorts of features shouldn't be put into fleet vehicles, and then that could filter through into the rest of the driving fleet. And this is my, I'll get you in a second, Marissa. This is my Vic Roads car, 16, 17 years ago or something like that. Driving along, got a device in it. It's telling me what speeds I'm in. It beeps at me if I go over the speed limit. When I get back to the office, I can see a map of exactly where I went over the speed limit. And, to integrate that sort of stuff into workplaces these days is so easy. Like the technology, but I was saying this is like 16 years ago. I mean, the technology is not the issue here. It's about our political will and our push to actually take the death and serious injury associated with work travel, or really general travel, and start taking it seriously. Marissa.
Thanks, Ken. One of our participants has shared a link to a video in New Zealand for an ad for mobile phones.
It's one of the ones in the learning management system, I'm sure.
Yeah,
it's a great ad. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Ben has asked, is the instant nature that the internet has created one of the challenges to road safety? News on the other side of the world can be accessed in seconds, but it takes an hour to drive from A to B.
Yeah, again, I mean, I don't know. Maybe. I don't know of even any sort of research around that space. We're giving out lots of prizes for just stumping me for saying, I don't know. It's
another one.
Yeah, no, good question. Give out a prize for that.
Thanks, Ken. That's all for now.
Okay, I'm gonna have to so in your notes, just some dot points summarizing what I've been talking about. I'll quickly talk through vehicles and then just get us to a point where Marissa has 3 or 4 minutes just to show you the learning management system. Vehicle safety intervention, vehicle safety features are coming along leaps and bounds. I mean, we know things like ANCAP, the star rating system, has done a wonderful job in making people understand safety is this important part. And we have crash tests, scenarios. We have these sort of tests, but you need to understand some of the limitations around these. The speed of this crash test, the side impact pole test. So what happens here is you slide the vehicle at the pole, or sometimes you slide the pole at the vehicle. And the dummy in here has to not have brain damage, essentially, an acquired brain injury of a pretty high level. They're basically going to hold a lifelong brain injury, right? So that's where we've got to keep the forces under that, right, in this. So that's the test. So they've got their side curtain airbags. I'll give a prize for the person who can tell me the speed that this test happens at. What speed do you slide that vehicle in? And we've got to keep it within check. Have a guess. Got some guesses coming in. I'm watching them all come in. This is good. All right, lots of good guesses there. And Marissa, give it to the person that's put the lowest speed in, because everybody's gone too high, as what I'm saying. This happens at 32 kilometers an hour under the most current ANCAP test protocol. In this one, which is actually 2012, it was at 29 kilometers an hour. They increased it to 32 kilometers an hour. I saw some of you with other ones like around the 52, which is the frontal offset head-on crash. Different crashes. But the reason I show that is just to show you the limitations on what the vehicle can do in absorption of energy. So even your 5-star vehicles, if they are able to side impact a pole or a tree or the like, we can't guarantee if they're going over 32 kilometers an hour that it won't result in lifelong debilitating injury, brain injury for the drivers. I mean, that's very low speed, isn't it? The side of vehicles are horribly engineered for crash impact. Frontal, so impact to people outside of the vehicle now is part of the ANCAP test protocol. So you got to think about, are you protecting cyclists, pedestrians and the like? So that's one of the tests now these days. So you'll see a lot of bonnets pop up when they hit a pedestrian, or airbags come out over the bonnet, which is good. So we're progressing, but be understanding of the limitations of it. And if you think, okay, well, the vehicle will take over, and this is, something, we just wait and the vehicles will solve it all. Well, the vehicles are doing a lot and a lot more, but it is still a long way off that we see vehicles like this with no steering wheel. And what we'll see is this interesting sort of transition through. It's not like, one day we'll wake up and the whole fleet will be driving itself. It's going to be slow integration, and we're already seeing bits and pieces of it. There's a whole lot of work to do. It's a whole lot of time, and you have to, change over your whole fleet. Anyway, lots of jurisdictions analyzing this in excruciating detail as to whether it's best to just buy everybody's car up, crush them all, and give them all these, or do we keep trying to improve the infrastructure and, all these expensive barriers and all these infrastructure improvements and all of that sort of stuff? And the answer is, it's not one or the other. It's this complex combination. So we will see vehicles, braking by themselves here. They've decided they see a pedestrian, they're going to hit the brakes. And, these are good things. There we go, a leg came off that one. Well, that actually is somewhat a success because that vehicle's seen something and braked, and then the impact was a lower speed, and it just happened to knock the, so anyway, that's a bit of fun. Okay, how are we going with time? Okay, but quick. So just a basic recap on speed, and speed is not speed and impact force are not a linear relationship. Let me explain this easiest way I can. Traveling along at 60 kilometers an hour, or somebody is. Something steps out at 45 meters down the track. They got to see that, they got to process that information, and then they lift their foot up, and then they hit the brakes, and then the physics of them stopping, and they'll just stop at 45 meters. Let's go up 10 kilometers per hour travel speed to 70. Hit at 46 kilometers an hour, not just 10 kilometers an hour, 46. This is not a linear relationship. That's one. When you factor in there biomechanics of injury curves and add that in, what we start to see is that we have a power relationship between speed and severity outcome. So we have a fourth power relationship here between change in speed and chance of death. We have a third power relationship between serious injury. So that's basically saying small changes in speed up will have significant changes in the number of fatal crashes, significant, a little bit less in serious injury crashes. It's big, right? These are, big relationships. The community is, quite interested in speed and speed limits and speed management. And I've got some community sentiment on speed limits. That half of the community in general aren't quite convinced on speed limits. They are convinced that on basic physics and biomechanics of injury, though. They understand generally that the faster you hit something, the more severe it's going to be. So that's a good start. But we'll talk a little bit more about this as we go. I was doing an update to the Austroads Guide to Road Safety Part 3, which is speed and speed management. And I chucked this one in out of Europe, which just basically says, it doesn't matter what your fleet is, what your road system is, or what your road user is. If you filter it through an appropriate speed, you have a safe transport system. Speed is this massive governing factor. And if you've got deficient infrastructure, you need to manage that with speed. If your infrastructure is great, put your speed up, associated with the vehicles and what they can maintain and the like. So we shouldn't just think about speed limits, think about speed and or infrastructure changes to get appropriate speeds. Explaining why they're in place can help with acceptance. And generally, vulnerable road users are pretty well accepted as a reason to reduce speed. Okay, as I let Marissa take over in 1 minute, I'm just going to give you a little lead into our next session we're going to have with Max. So risk is traditionally the chance of something bad happening multiplied by the magnitude of badness. So that could be the chance of recession. The risk of recession is chance of recession. How deep a recession do we go into? But in road trauma crashes, we say, what's the chance of a crash? How bad will it be? In a safe system assessment, though, we actually extract from likelihood two elements: the exposure, so the number of people exposed to this risk, the chance of it actually manifesting in a crash, and then the magnitude of that crash. And they're the elements that we unpack to give us our end risk in a safe system assessment. And so you can, think about exposure by less people exposed to the conflict points, blocking off a level crossing, separating vulnerable road users from vehicles so they're not exposed to that conflict, reducing the chance of a crash using, sealed shoulders, edge lines, audio tactile center lines, wide center lines. All this stuff is lessening the chance of a crash happening in the first place. When the crashes happen, they're still the same severity. Signals themselves, they reduce the chance of a crash, but we know that the crashes are still severe. And severity, though, it's about reducing the energy or changing the energy. So either reducing the speed so the energy goes down, or washing energy out over time with a barrier system or something like that. So they still hit it. This is still a crash, but the energy is dissipated over time. And I'll take you through some kinetic energy equations and things later in the course. Okay, Marissa, over to you. Take over. Show them the learning management system. I'll read the questions. I probably won't get to everybody's, but I'll maybe transfer some to Max.
Great. Okay, so I'll just quickly show you through the learning management system that we mentioned earlier. Again, if you don't have access, please let us know. Just in our welcome session, we've got the link to the webinar for each session and some course information like the agenda and so on that you've already been sent. We've got an introductions forum there that you can all pop your hellos into, which a bunch of you already done, so thank you so much. Pre-course content, we've got a 10-minute safe system video that you're welcome to watch, and a bunch of resources here in our resources folder. We've got some fact sheets that links over to our fact sheets over on our website, and a bunch of different resources and guides there for you to browse through. Heading over to module 1, we've got our presentation slides there that Ken has run through today, and I will update that just with a few new slides that Ken had popped in. Some module 1 videos that Ken's made reference to again. You're welcome just to browse through them and have a watch. And yeah, an additional little link that you can have a watch of. Okay, module 1 quiz. This is your task for this module. So just a short 10-question little quiz for you. If you just click onto the quiz, and this should, I've already started it, so we'll just continue my attempt. But it's just 10 or so questions, multiple choice questions that based on the content that's been delivered today. So just have a go at that one. And
that one,
yeah.
you are being marked on. You need to get 80%
Yes.
or more. So if you don't get 80% or more, you'll have another crack at it. If you're really doing badly, I suggest you get in contact with training@safesystemsolutions.com.au and say, can I have a bit of coaching and get my head around a few of these concepts a bit quicker. But try and do that before the next session. I mean, the reality is you have to do them all before the end of the course, before you get your certificate. So there's no particular has to be done by this time, but it's easiest just to get them over and done with while it's fresh. Thank you, Marissa.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ken. And you will have Max presenting for the next session with Loretta.
Yeah, and log in a little early because Max does love, and Loretta loves a bit of trivia. They'll ask some questions and get some prizes. Wonderful group. Thank you for the input. Love the discussion, and we'll get back into it later on. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.